I'm Jacqueline Marino, professor of journalism at Kent State University. This is the first ever local focus feature on PBS Western Reserve. Our local focus storytelling initiative brings our region into focus, covering the people, places, and events that matter to you. Last spring, I had the privilege of co-teaching the documentary and journalism course, along with my colleague, Chris Knobloch, a digital media production professor and filmmaker. We had 58 students take the course. About half came from the digital media production major and half were journalism majors. We put them together in teams and gave them a goal: make stories that matter. That's what it said in the syllabus, and that's what they did. Our students made 18 original documentaries. You'll get to see 2 of them right now on this special local focus feature program. The first is Vital Pages. This documentary shows the funding challenges libraries are facing right now, focusing on the Akron Public Library. This library provides so much more than free reading material. As one librarian told the students, we do everything from getting you signed up for a passport, to helping you get your GED, to helping you with your family history. The documentary explains why these community resources in Ohio are under threat right now. The next documentary chronicles the search for Judy Martins, a student who disappeared from Kent State University nearly 50 years ago. The students talked to her family members, a reporter who has been following the case, and even a U.S. Marshal. The documentary reminds us why the search for Judy must continue. After each documentary, we'll introduce you to the talented Kent State student filmmakers that created them. Here is Vital Pages.
So within the Trump administration framework, libraries are facing all sorts of problems.
Ohio is a very pro-library state, but even that is being chipped away. There would be physical space questions, there would be censorship questions, there would be collection development questions, and it's just a beast that we've never had to tackle before.
I worked 25 years in retail, and I wanted to take my service knowledge that I had from there and apply it somewhere. And I said, where can I go use my customer service, my public service knowledge? And the library was my answer to that question. Yeah, I think it was just that I wanted to just do more for my community and just be a bigger part of that. And I felt that being a librarian, I would be able to actually impact my community and make a change. It makes the day go by fast, and it brings me a little bit of joy when I can help someone with what they need.
The library is a third space. It doesn't cost anything to be here. Everyone is welcome here. You don't have to buy a coffee to sit here for a couple of hours to use the Wi-Fi. It's a place that there's no equivalency to. It's an essential community asset that I think adds a lot to the quality of life living in a city.
Yeah, I mean, well, we do everything from, getting you signed up for a passport, to helping you get your GED, to helping you with your family history. Someone can come in and sit down and have someone help them with their resume, help them apply for jobs, or at least help them point them in the right direction.
So we're constantly offering types of services that you wouldn't think of. If you had all the resources that you needed to buy every book, every movie, every CD, every digital media that you wanted, you don't know that the library offers those for free and that it is the only way some people access certain things. On a local level, here in Ohio, recently some proposals have been made to cut public library funding. I grew up about 10 minutes from a library in Akron, and I spent probably 3 afternoons a week here. I grew up with very little resources, but my mom valued learning. And so I came here to get access to all of the things that we weren't able to have access to at home. It ended up paying off for me. I graduated 2 years early, and I have several degrees now. And I do attribute all of my passions, my interests, all that to having access to the items here at Akron Library. So nationally, public libraries are facing cuts because we're in an economic downturn that is undeniable. And it's just something that I think is a result of many factors. And a lot of the conversation in this country has shifted toward cutting things that are seen as not essential. There's certain There's a certain privilege that comes with thinking that libraries are not important.
Hi, I'm John Kraska. I'm Executive Director for Every Library and the Every Library Institute. I do quite a bit with legislation and public policy issues, and the occasional issue in Congress, which has gotten more and more complicated during the Trump administration. Politically, the Trump administration has issued a couple of different executive orders. The one that impacts the Institute of Museum and Library Services, the ones that impact the National Archives. There's one that was recently issued that was impacting the Smithsonian Institution. You've already seen how the Trump administration has behaved in more discretionary ways around the Kennedy Center and other arts. Where it impacts right now locally, right now in Florida, there's been a local district attorney and a local state senator who are sending letters to libraries to say that you have to remove the LGBTQ materials because President Trump's agenda for the federal government means that local libraries cannot collect materials that are diverse or equitable or inclusive. That has a chilling effect. The State Library of Alabama just cut off funding for a local library called Fairhope. They cut off the funding because the library board wouldn't remove the books about LGBTQ populations. Books that are constitutionally protected, they would have cut off 100% of it if they could have.
So the recent state funding issue that has been in the news for Ohio libraries, the basics of this issue are the governor proposed a budget for the 2026 fiscal year and the 2027 fiscal year of a certain monetary amount. Over the course of those 2 years of library funding, they would cut more than $100 million to public libraries in Ohio. As we're talking now, that issue has passed the Ohio representatives. So the budget cuts would take effect immediately, and it would affect every public library in Ohio. People think there's only so much money to go around, right? Why do public libraries deserve it more than, I don't know, some other entity? But the reality is, the things that we offer more than just the materials, the databases we have. It would be extremely difficult for people with limited resources to have access to the things that the library is able to provide. You know, you think books, you think movies, music, things like that, but it's a lot bigger than that. Librarians are trained to run programs, and we have a lot of community partnerships that help out the community. These are people who are very driven, who have dedicated their careers to helping the public.
For every dollar that you invest in a public library, there's a $5, $7, $10 return on communities. And that's an economic conversation. But every dollar you invest in collections for pre-K readiness or summer learning, every dollar you invest in a staff that can help communities figure out, what they're looking for, the information that they need, the enjoyment that they want, those are immeasurable kinds of calculations.
We fear a little more what will happen to smaller libraries, your rural ones, your inner city independent libraries. There's these small communities that are outside of a metropolitan city. They're not going to be able to be serviced by those large systems. There's libraries, smaller independents and other systems get a larger portion of their overall funding from the state. So deep cuts to those could be catastrophic. So we did a call for letter writing. We did a digital campaign, a print campaign. It was very comprehensive, and every public library in Ohio gathered together, borrowed language from the Ohio Library Council to really understand these very complicated facts, to make it digestible, to understand why they needed to reach out to the representatives. We heard directly from representatives that phone lines were jammed, emails were blowing up, and we know that they were not prepared for the response that they got.
Libraries are super important. They are absolutely necessary in any community. We're just there to offer free resources so that, people can come and enrich themselves. And through enriching themselves, they can enrich their communities. And if we all have better, stronger communities, everything starts to look better for everyone.
Please reach out, call your senators, just explain to them what libraries mean to you. And I would love to see, obviously, continued support financially and by the community. The more people use our services, the more support we have for those services and the way the funding works.
But there's also a inclusivity to library collections in particular. A book can be relevant to a protected minority class and not be of interest or even comfortable to the majority. And I think there's something very American about that. And yet those protected classes about race, about gender, sexuality, even religion, are being attacked in very significant ways by the Trump administration through these executive orders.
Now that gives us a lot to think about. Let's hear from the filmmakers. Today, we have Savannah Kapp, who is the writer and the production coordinator on Vital Pages. And to her left is James Plested, who is the director-producer. Unfortunately, Katie Waggle, who is the director of photography, could not be here today. But we're going to start with just trying to find out from James and Savannah why they wanted to make a documentary about libraries. So why did you?
Yeah, so I've always felt that, libraries are kind of like the heart of every community. And I grew up going to libraries and reading, so they've always been there for me. And I guess this was kind of my way of being there for them and showing up for them and advocating to show their importance.
So have you been going to the library since you were little?
Yeah.
Did you remember going there as a kid?
Yeah, and I always did the summer reading, and you'd get like the little sheets and record it down and everything, so.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
And how do you use the library now?
Now I still use the public library in Kent, and I don't know, it's just a nice way to discover what else I like to read and kind of branch out in that way and connect with the community there, so.
Oh, wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
James, why did you want to make a documentary
Yeah,
about
recently
libraries?
I realized how nice it is to use a library as a space for studying or just getting things done. And I wanted to go into what it takes to keep that institution alive and what things are going on with it right now.
I'm curious about what it was like for you working with each other. James, you're a digital media production major. You've worked on a lot of student films, scripted work. Savannah, you are a journalist. It's very rare that these two groups of students work together. What did you learn?
Yeah, normally I've been working on scripted narratives, student films, but this was more finding the story while asking the subjects about their perspectives on the subject. So from talking to the people, we found the story along the way and really narrowed it into the issue that we brought forth in the documentary.
Great. And what was it like for you working with filmmakers?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because my favorite part about journalism is being able to tell the story of the people. So I think it was interesting to go about it in a way that they're actually on camera and being able to talk about it. So you kind of see more of their emotion and how they actually feel about things than just getting a quote from them in written word. So I liked that aspect of it.
Great, great. I also like that aspect as a journalist, that I completely identify with what you're saying. So last question for you. What do you want community members to know about libraries that maybe they don't already know?
I think just that they are important to everyone. So like Dana said from the Akron Library, it's a privilege to not think that libraries are important. So even if you don't directly feel like you need a library, they are a need for the whole community.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being here today. Now, let's take a look at the next film, a true crime story titled, What Happened to Judy Martins?
My name is Dave O'Brien. I'm a reporter at the Chronicle Telegram in Elyria, Ohio. I've been in Ohio for about 20 years now, well, 22 years now. And previously I worked at the Record Courier in Kent and Ravenna. I was there for about 16 years, and that's how I first came to find out about this case. Judy Martins was a Kent State student, and just before Memorial Day, 1978, and May 24th to be exact, she attended a party, and either after that party or sometime when she was headed back to her dorm, she disappeared off the face of the earth.
A family searching for answers after nearly 47 years. What happened to Judy Martins?
As soon as my parents reached out and said that she was missing, I knew it was very serious, just because I knew Judy well enough. And so, some people say, well, she probably just took off for the weekend or week or whatever. And I knew that wasn't the case. And we all took it seriously. Nancy came in from Columbus, and I was out of town. I came back.
I can remember the phone call distinctively when my mother called me and said, we can't find Judy. And I was like, what? Because she was just a reliable person. She wasn't somebody that would have gone off on some tangent or some trip or something and not told me or my mother, because I had spoken to her on the phone the week before, and we were on the phone for like an hour and a half just hashing out boyfriend issues that we both had. And I think it was more shock than anything, and I kept thinking, this has to be a mistake. This just can't be right. Something like this doesn't happen in my family or anywhere.
And it affected our family in ways that you can't imagine, or maybe you can. It was, it just broke my dad's heart, and my mother too. And they were just so hopeful that somebody would come forward, that we would hear something. And obviously over the years that did not happen.
I'm not so sure things went down that last night the way they were said. There's been different contradictions, but I really have no idea. I just, we have never had an answer in all these years. There's nothing to go on. Her money was there. You'd think if you were planning on taking off, I don't know that you would plan to take off in the middle of the night, but don't get me started on that. But it was obvious to me that she had not left voluntarily, because there were things that she would never have gone anywhere without. Not to mention, she would never have done that to her family. She wouldn't have.
My theory, my personal theory, just based on everything I know, is that someone she knew either grabbed her, or, we hear a lot of times in true crime, that somebody made an advance, somebody made a sexual advance or a pass at someone that was rejected or denied or refused in some way, and then that led to some sort of angry confrontation or a fight that then led to violence. We've heard that an awful lot. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility in this case. There are numerous ponds, lakes, and reservoirs in Portage County and Summit County. Summit Lakes, Lake Rockwell. Brady Lake is very close. But I think the water theory is a solid theory, because that's one very easy way to get rid of evidence, is to sink it to the bottom of a lake and hope that it never comes up. One of the last photos that we have of Judy alive is her at the party in a costume, in a disguise. You know, it was a long, curly red wig. She had, you know, gaucho pants on and kind of a flowery, colorful blouse. I would think within a couple hours of that photo being taken, she was already dead. And again, none of her clothing, her father's credit card that she had, you know, her purse, her shoes, none of that has ever been recovered. And we just don't know where it is, if it still even exists. I am of the understanding that the United States Marshal Service, under the direction of Pete Elliott, who's the U.S. Marshal for the Northern District of Ohio, is investigating the case, is re-interviewing people, again, from who police talked to 50, you know, almost 50 years ago.
So obviously she's been missing for a very long time. She was in her early 20s in 1978. So Kent State Police, the city police, as well as Kent State University Police kind of looked into her disappearance years ago. I've been with the Marshals for about 3-ish years now. So about a year and a half ago, up to 2 years ago, the Marshal had an investment in this case because it was connection to Kent State and asked me to kind of look into things. So we obtained all of the police records that we could that were still around and weren't destroyed, and then we started looking into the case. Typically when we do that, we review everything from the very beginning to where we are to date with the case, and we kind of go from there. So we look at the entire case file, review who was talked to, who was interviewed, different things that were explored throughout the investigation. So me, myself, I've interviewed probably like 5 or 6 people that either knew Judy Martins or had some kind of affiliation or associate of some kind. We have 2 persons of interest, I should say, one of which has been talked to before. They both have been talked to before, were allegedly at that party and were seen leaving with Judy.
The key to finding an answer is to keep reminding everybody of it. And partially too, we don't want her forgotten, just like she never was here. I mean, that's heartbreaking. If you were at, and I've said this before, if you were at Kent State in May of 1978, and especially if you lived in Dunbar Hall, which was the last place she was seen, and you remember anything, contact the U.S. Marshal's office in Cleveland, Ohio, and no matter how small it is or whatever, and let them know. Somebody knows something, obviously. She didn't just like vanish. So that's always our hope. And you know, you have to keep hope, you know. You just do. You just do. And if she came back tomorrow, I can say, we never stopped looking. You know, we never gave up on you. You know, you're still part of our family.
What a great film. So thought-provoking. I'm really glad that we have the filmmakers here with us today. To my left is Adriana Gajeski, who is the director-producer on the film, and Alex Tosco, who is the director of photography and the editor. Not with us today is Kayla Gleason, who is the writer and production coordinator. She couldn't be with us. Let's just get started with telling us how you learned about Judy Martins.
Well, initially it was me and Kayla wanting to come together for the project, and she had heard about the case of Judy Martins, like maybe from her roommate or somewhere on the internet, and there were so many strange coincidences, like someone from Cleveland named Judy Martins popped up during like the investigation. So we just really wanted to kind of look into it because we've never heard of it before, like you didn't hear about it.
Yeah, no, if it wasn't for Adriana and Kayla, I would have no idea about this story. I would have no idea. So.
Now, Judy Martins disappeared 47 years ago, so long before you two were born. So most people in your audience probably have not heard about this case. So how did you make them connect to her and to her family struggle?
Well, we wanted to keep it relevant with how many other missing people there are going on now. But we wanted to obviously talk about, it was hard to talk with the families, with like her sister and everything, since this is a sensitive topic, but with it being, an active case, they're reopening it and looking into not just Judy's case, but multiple missing persons cases. So we wanted to keep that relevant to the story.
Was it difficult interviewing the family?
I think it was a little bit. I have a sister, so I saw a lot of similarities between Judy and me, and Nancy, me, my sister Judy, how we always talk and just are. So the thought of not having my sister around made it more difficult. I don't know, what do you think?
Yeah, it is hard, these are tough questions to ask, and you don't want to ask them in a rude way either, and you want their honest opinion about how the case was handled and how, what their hopes are, if, they actually do have high hopes for this, or, if they don't, so.
I definitely got the sense from the documentary that the people you interviewed believe it is possible to still find out what happened to Judy. Do you want to weigh in on that? Why do you think that they still have that hope?
Well, with how technology is now, if you were to find any kind of, evidence, they're able to really look into it, highly into it, so they can, find exactly.
Yeah, it's more likely probably now with all the technology that we have.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for talking with us today. It was wonderful working on the documentary with you all. Thanks for watching this Local Focus feature. We hope you enjoyed this sample from the great stories from Kent State University and digital media production students, and we hope that you enjoyed meeting the filmmakers. I'm Jacqueline Marino, and this is PBS Western Reserve.